theory I think has ever been, as far as I know, has ever been coined, which explains this phenomenon which we've gotten in the last couple of years, which has really hit us during this recession. The phenomenon of prices going up, consumer goods prices going up, at the same time we have recession and unemployment. This is the famous sort of scissors effect. And this phenomenon, of course, puts the establishment economists in a real bind, because all the establishment knows, whether it's monetary establishment or fiscal establishment, all they know is if there's a recession, you pump money in and you spend more, and if there's an inflation, you stop pumping money in, you take some money out. What do you do if both are happening at the same time? What do you do if consumer goods prices are going up? At the same time, there's business failures and unemployment and all the rest of it. And one time during the 1958 recession, I had the occasion to attend a lecture of Professor Burns, who in those days was head of the Council of Economic Advisors. And I asked him this question because at that time this phenomenon had appeared already. But so I asked him this question. I said, "What would you do? What would you recommend doing in this situation?" He said, "Well, don't worry about it because we're getting out of the recession very quickly. In a couple of months, it will be over." I said, "Okay, I concede that. What happens if some future time we don't get out of it very quickly? Then what?" And what he said then, I stayed with me ever since. He said, "In that case, we all have to resign." Unquote. So I'm calling upon him and the rest of the people out there in Washington to resign, to fulfill this role. Resign post haste. Actually, of course, consumer goods prices always did rise during a recession. The only thing is none of us knew about it. None of us really cared, because all prices in general, were falling because there was a monetary deflation. Every pre-war recession, pre-World War II recession, the money supply would fall and prices would fall, and consumer goods prices wouldn't fall as much as the other prices. And this would perform the same function, the same role of consumer goods prices, in other words, would rise relative to other prices, but nobody worried about it, obviously. Nowadays, of course, with our new, modern, developed scientific system, we don't have any deflation anymore. It's impossible. The government has arranged the banking system in such a way that the money supply can never, ever fall. And so we don't have prices falling anymore. And so we have a phenomenon in recession of consumer goods prices starkly going up. And it, of course, upsets everybody, as well it might. Now, the reason why consumer goods prices go up during a recession, again, has been explained by the Austrian Professor Mises' theory, which is that during a recession, resources have to shift from capital goods to consumer goods. And in doing that, reflecting this higher consumption investment ratio that had been actually the economy had been working on. And in doing that, as resources shift from capital goods to consumer goods prices go up and capital goods prices go down, reflecting this different shift of demand supply. So this, as I say, has always been taking place. It's only now that it's been starkly revealed. Now we've been saved from deflation. It's starkly revealed we get the worst of both worlds now in our current scientifically organized recession. We have prices going up and unemployment. Of course, another thing is that Friedman again has a very mechanical kind of mathematical statistical approach. Tends to ignore the fact that demand for money is not really stable. It varies. It varies really in accordance with expectations of prices going up, and people now finally come to the conclusion. We're now, Professor Mises has talked about the various stages of inflation. We have the first stage, and people think that prices will go back to normal pretty soon. It's the old naive days. Prices are going up, well, it's purely wartime or something, it'll go back soon. We've abandoned that. Now the public has now begun to realize that prices will keep going up forever. Every year we have a 5% increase or something. Once they begin to realize that, the demand for money falls drastically and prices really begin to skyrocket, and we're just about at that point. We're just about reaching phase 2 or whatever of this inflationary process. And this is something Friedman really doesn't take into account, because he doesn't take subjective expectations very much into account. It's all kind of a mechanical theory. You have functions, you have statistics, and it's all correlated, and that's that. Okay, now to get to the last big part here of again in monetary policy, fiat versus commodity money, another criticism I have of the Friedman position. One of the reasons the Fisher and the Chicago School in the 30s were considered to be radical was because they always were against the gold standard. They're always chafing under the strength of the gold standard. Friedman, of course, frankly wants to abolish gold altogether as a monetary commodity and replace it with totally fiat currencies. The dollar will be totally fiat, the franc and the mark and so forth and so on. And all of these currencies are supposed to fluctuate freely in relation to each other. Now this change would, again, supposedly this would be more efficient than the present system. You wouldn't have to worry about the balance of payments all the time. There wouldn't be a pound crisis every 2 years and all the rest of it. It would be more efficient in the sense that the the exchange rates would then fluctuate in accordance with the monetary issue of each currency. However, even though it would be more efficient, it would be a lot worse. For one thing, it would cut completely every tie to gold, every tie to a commodity money we have now, as weak as the tie is. And for one thing, at least now we have this check on the government that they can't inflate too much because the balance of payments will be pretty embarrassing. Gold will keep flowing out in this kind of embarrassing situation. So at least this has provided a fairly good check on the government in the last few years on inflation. Because one thing that Friedman, of course, doesn't realize is that the government is not sort of a neutral agency, not sort of a neutral instrument for social action. It's essentially a Chicago position. Sometimes they're efficient, sometimes they're inefficient. You sort of take the thing on an ad hoc basis. Government is essentially inherently an inflationary instrument. In other words, my contention is that the inherent tendency of the state is inflation. And if you give to the state, without any check at all, without the gold standard check, the total power, give to the government the total power to inflate money at will, they're going to do it. They're going to use it. For reasons I'll say in a minute. So what Friedman then advocates is to leave the total absolute dictatorial control of the money supply in the hands of the central government without any check, without any commodity money check, without any international money at all, placing all power in the hands of the government and then trusting the government, urging it to bind itself by these 3% rules, 3-4% per year rules. They're not going to do it. I mean, it's just utopian and unrealistic and kooky to expect that the federal government is going to do this. It's going to first get total power and then hardly use it. And I think we know about power by this time in the 20th century. We know this sort of thing isn't done. The great thing, the major point, the great thing about the gold standard, the critics of the gold standard all say that those of us who are in favor of the gold standard are sort of, gold fetishists. We like to stay there in the closet, at night and run our hands through our gold coins. Gold. That sort of thing. It's a lot of nonsense. I've unfortunately never seen a gold coin. I'd like to. The main reason why we're in favor of the gold standard is because gold is a commodity money. In order to get it, it's costly to get it. You have to dig it out of the ground. That costs a lot. And you have to produce it, sell it, and so forth. This is all costly to discover and mine it. And it creates this market check, an automatic market check on government tendency toward inflation. Whereas fiat paper, government paper, doesn't have this check of high cost and so forth. It's very easy it's almost costless to print money. Also, another point is, I think a very important one, is the money is really a key command post of the entire economic system. Money, of course, is used in every exchange, every transaction, as money is one part of it. So money is the most important single commodity, and he who controls the money supply, I think, is a long way to controlling the whole economic system, regardless of whether you say, well, yes, we're in favor of the free market, or against any intervention except in money. But if you allow intervention in money, you've really got the whole system in your hands anyway. And as I say, Friedman would not only leave this power in the hands of the state, he welcomes it, he's in favor of it. He sort of would shove the power in the hands of the state. It's unlimited power to print money. The state printing of money, and of course of the bank credit based on the controlled banking system, which is really a government operation by this time. This whole system is really nothing more nor less, I think, very bluntly, simply legalized counterfeiting. Now, the reason why I think that the inherent tendency of the state is inflation is simply this. If you or I or any one of us or any group of us were given an absolute power, somebody came to us and handed us the printing presses and said, okay, you guys from now on have a complete control of the printing presses. You have a compulsory monopoly of the printing presses. You can print whatever you want, whatever money you want. You can use it for any purposes you want. Anybody else who prints it gets shot or gets 30 years in jail. And then it's handed to us. What will we do with it? We print it. We use it. I think it's inevitable. And this is what happens with the government. The government has allocated to itself, arrogated to itself, the compulsory monopoly of the use of the printing press, and so they use it. I think it's simple as all that. And they use it more and more. And it's very easy. You don't have to work. You make money without working for it, without even taxing for it. Taxes are kind of, working is a pain in the neck, and taxing is kind of onerous. It's a pain in other people's neck, and they start complaining. Print money is very simple. Nobody knows about it. It's sort of done in the dark of night. Nobody understands monetary theory anyway. They understand taxes. They don't understand monetary theory. And so it's a very easy, ready thing to do. And then when the state inflates the money supply, and then 6 months later, a year later, prices start going up, the state can always blame other people. Everybody else gets blamed, of course. This is, of course, a characteristic. Speculators get blamed, businessmen, unions, consumers in general. We all know, of course, about these these monstrous commercials about don't be piggy. Inflation is caused by all of us are evil because we're piggy. We like to eat. Everybody is to blame. Everybody under the sun has been blamed in the past years, except the government itself, of course. The government is a shining knight in armor, manning the ramparts, always checking inflation and so forth and so on. Actually, of course, they're the ones who are doing it. They're the ones who are inflating. Gold also provides an international money. Another, I think, important point. It provides a money for a world market, which we hope someday at least will be in being. World division of labor, free trade, and so forth. It's really the basis of it. If you have the Friedman idea is that each government prints its own money without any kind of world balancing item or world money. The logic of it, see, it doesn't look so absurd if you look at it just as 80 or 100 countries, whatever it is, each one prints its own money. 100 countries isn't so bad. What happens if you pursue the logic of it a little bit further? What happens if every province produced its own money? Every state, every county, every borough, every municipality, every little village printed its own money, its own currency, that is. I don't mean just has a printing press. It means that the village of Plainfield, the town, the city of Plainfield prints Plainfieldiana notes or whatever. Plainfield. They print 8 Plainfields a week or something like that. And each block could print its own money. Each house, each person, even. I print 10 Rothbards, and that's issuing it. Right, not worth too much. Now, the point is, if you have this kind of situation, this is really chaos. I mean, people accuse the market of being chaos. This would really be chaos. You have millions of exchange rates all over the place. You have to consider, let's see, what would 10 Rothbards be worth in terms of 80 Plainfields, that sort of thing. In addition to trying to run a price system, etc. So what you really have with this kind of system is a breaking up of money as a general medium of exchange, which is what money is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a commodity which everybody uses in exchange. Instead of that, you have every little locality printing its own money and so forth. You have the breaking up of a price system, a crippled price system, and really a chaotic situation. I don't think there's any question about it. And the Friedman plan is logically similar, although not quite as absurd because it's quantitatively not as bad. You're only dealing with 120 governments or something instead of 2 million. But the principle is still the same. You're still breaking up the world market. You're still ending the days when you had one commodity or 2 commodities, gold or silver, being used by every country, which provided a world money for everybody. You're busting up a international division of labor and so forth. And again, I think Friedman arrived at this idea of fluctuating fiat monies because he, just like Fisher 40 years ago, doesn't understand the true nature of money. They think of money as simply a name. The name is there. The money is the dollar or the franc or whatever. They don't understand that money is really basically a commodity or unit. These currencies are units of weight of gold or silver. This is how all these names originated. And where do the names come from? I mean, people didn't all sit down one day in 1790 and say, okay, from now on we call our money dollars, and we start printing them. Dollars were units of weight of gold or silver, and so were francs, and so were pounds, and so forth. As a matter of fact, even now, even in this benighted age, if you look at the statutes of the United States, you see what dollar is defined as. A dollar says the dollar is defined as being 1/35 approximately of a gold ounce. In other words, that is the definition of a dollar. So even now, when we're far from a true gold standard, still these currencies are defined in terms of units of weight of gold. As a matter of fact, it was characteristic. It was Fisher's beloved colleague, J. Shield Nicholson, distinguished economist, who wrote a book where he said that money is essentially like dodo bones. In other words, he tried to pick the most useless commodity, useless thing he could think of, dodo bones. He said, well, money's like dodo bones. It's really useless. It's just a name and so forth. Friedman is carrying on that tradition. Now, whether or not, I admit that there's no economic theory doesn't decree that certain given commodity must be money. It could be gold, it could be silver, it could be platinum, it could be something else. But the point is, we're now in a specific historical situation. The gold was our money before 1933, and then it was seized from us. It was confiscated. I keep mentioning this. Nobody seems to be even perturbed about this point. It seems to be a rather important one. We were using gold coins before 1933. The government confiscated the coins under the guise of this being necessary to save the banks during this special crisis, the Depression emergency. Well, the Depression emergency has been over for at least 30 years, maybe 38 or something, depending what we're talking about here. And nothing has been done. Not one step has been made to return the gold to us. And now that the emergency is over. It's, of course, characteristic of governments to pass emergency legislation